most interesting things about today's styles is that there are so many different sub-styles going on at the same time. You've got the cottagecore style, you've got the Billie Eilish style, you've got whatever the heck this style is called. No, seriously, I see this everywhere. They're trying to normalize wearing biker shorts voluntarily, and it's not okay. Well, the same thing was going on in the past as well. Even though there were larger, overarching styles and silhouettes that were very popular, there were a lot of sub-styles that were going on at the same time as well. With that in mind, I'm launching a new series where I isolate different decades and talk about the different sub-styles that were going on during that decade. Now, just to be clear, this list isn't meant to be exhaustive or super detailed. This is just a general overview to give you guys some style inspiration. So with that in mind, here we go. Today I'm going to be talking about 5 different style icons of the 1950s and how each of these icons related to the styles of the decade in their own unique way. While they definitely adhered to the popular styles of the time, they each had a different relationship to those styles and created a look that was very unique to them. And so without any more explanations or hesitations, let's start off with our first icon. Quite possibly one of the most quintessential style icons of the 1950s was Marylin Monroe. Now, if I could use one word to describe her style, I would say that it was very precise. Every aspect of her style was carefully planned out and tailored to her, so that she could achieve that very striking look that she had. In a sense, Marylin was more of a carefully tailored persona than she was a real person. Her style could be best characterized as form-fitting. Oftentimes she wore fitted tops featuring lower cut or open necklines. Her skirts tended to be more slim-fitting rather than full and flowing circle skirts. When looking at pictures of her, I found that her famous white dress from the 7-Year Itch was one of the few iconic looks that she had that featured a fuller skirt. It was clear that her style was meant to bring attention to her hourglass figure and draw the eye along the lines of her body. As for her hair, she sported a variety of styles. Sometimes her hair was styled very curly in a carefree fashion, and other times it was styled in looser curls or smooth and tucked under at the ends. Generally, the most consistent aspects of her hair was the length and the iconic shade of blonde. As for her makeup, again, it was extremely precise in how it was planned out and executed. There's actually a really great video by Eldridge where she recreates and explains the history and process behind Marylin Monroe's makeup. From the video alone, you can tell how personal Marylin's makeup was to her and how meticulous it was. If you want to check out the video itself, I'll link it down in the description. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. That said, the key components of Marylin's makeup was glowing skin, heavy-lidded Garbo-inspired eyes, and glossy red lipstick. Next on my icon list is Grace Kelly. Now, Grace is such a huge contrast from Marylin in a number of ways, but the most obvious to me was how much more relaxed and natural Grace's style was. Although she was still extremely stylish, her clothes tended to be a lot less tight against her body and gave her generally more breathing space. When it came to skirt styles, Grace pretty much wore the full spectrum. Grace wore slim-fitted skirts, she wore fuller, more structured skirts, she wore flowing skirts. She often wore open necklines, and in a lot of photos that I found, a number of her formal dresses featured gathered tops that complemented her hourglass figure. Grace also wore a lot of menswear-inspired styles, featuring trousers and collared shirts. This demonstrated that Grace could pull off both masculine and feminine styles with ease. Her hair also had a more relaxed yet elegant feel to it. Oftentimes, she wore her hair down in looser waves or pulled back into a sleek updo. I'm guessing that she favored these smoother, simpler styles because it just complemented her hair texture better. While Marylin had very thick hair, Grace's hair was a little thinner, and she must have decided to emphasize the strengths of her hair texture rather than work against them. Along with the rest of her style, Grace's makeup tended to be more natural, often wearing neutral eyeshadows, sometimes with a subtle wing. The biggest statement piece of her makeup was her lipstick, which ranged from red shades to pink. Next on my list is Audrey Hepburn. Now, already her style is pretty well documented, so I doubt that anything I say here is going to be particularly groundbreaking, but nevertheless, here I go. Similar to Grace Kelly, the fit of Audrey's clothes was less tight and more natural to her body, celebrating her less busty, more gamine figure. During the 50s, she often wore circle skirts and more structured skirts with petticoats. She's also famous for wearing cigarette pants with sweaters and turtlenecks. Now when it came to hair, Audrey was a bit of an outlier. Usually when we think of 50s hairstyles, we think of hair styled with pin curls or hair rollers, but Audrey tended to style her hair very differently. She embraced her straight hair, often wearing it in an updo or in a ponytail. During the 50s, Audrey was also famous for her short pixie cut with bangs featured in her films Sabrina and Roman Holiday. On a slight tangent, I find it interesting that both of these films feature Audrey getting her hair cut short, signifying a significant transformation of her character. While a character getting her hair cut to symbolize growing up or rebellion is a pretty common motif in films, I find it interesting that this motif shows up in 2 of her films. I don't know, my creative writing brain latched onto that and I felt compelled to point that out, so yeah, do with that what you will. Anyway, regarding Audrey's makeup, 2 of the key components of her look were dark arched eyebrows and thick lashes, further emphasized with eyeliner. Her skin had more of a soft, matte finish to it, and a number of her looks featured more of a smile line shape to her lips, where her upper lip was drawn a little bit wider than her lower lip. This technique is particularly noticeable in her film Funny Face, where her character is first revealed as a model. Next is Lucille Ball. Now I would best describe her style, particularly as it was featured on her show I Love Lucy, as domestic glam. She wore a lot of typical 1950s fashions, such as house dresses and trousers paired with blouses, but they always had an extra oomph to them. A lot of her clothing had very minute details to them that drew the eye up to her face, such as trim on her bust pockets, collars with embroidery on the inside, and pearl necklaces. Her hair is probably the most iconic aspect of her style. During the 50s, her hair was bright red and it was pulled up into a poodle style with fluffy curls. On a side note, I would highly recommend looking up pictures of Lucille Ball from the 30s. Her hairstyle was so different then, but she still looked absolutely gorgeous. As for her makeup, the key components of her look were rounded happy brows and lipstick drawn with a rounded, far-set Cupid's bow. Last but not least is Elizabeth Taylor. Now Elizabeth had a relatively diverse style in that she pretty much ran the whole gambit when it came to 50s style. She wore circle skirts, she wore fitted skirts, she wore trousers, she wore collared shirts. If you can think of it, she probably wore it. Except for these skirts. That skirt with the mouse haunts my dreams. Although the pieces she wore were pretty diverse, the fit was rather consistent. Similar to Marylin, Elizabeth had a beautiful hourglass figure, and a lot of her clothing was cinched in around her waistline, and a number of her formal dresses featured open necklines. Now, Elizabeth's hair was amazing. She probably had some of the best hairstyles of the 50s. She had gorgeous, thick, dark hair that she often wore in fluffy curls. During the 50s, her hair length varied a lot, from mid-length to chin length to short with voluminous curls piled on top of her head. However, one consistency that I noticed was that oftentimes some aspect of her hair was worn very close to her face. She wore bangs or a wave that dipped onto her forehead or curls that curved near her temples. It was very rare for her hair to be pulled back in a sleek style. Her hair was usually fluffy and very full. As for her makeup, there are aspects of her look that remind me a lot of Audrey's makeup. Similar to Audrey, she had dark, defined brows and heavy lashes. She also wore more neutral eyeshadow with eyeliner and red lipstick. So pretty much the average 1950s makeup look. That's it for my list of style icons of the 1950s. If you'd like, please comment below your favorite style icons of this decade. I would absolutely love to know who your favorites are. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope to upload a new one soon. Bye!